Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. Fresh revelations in the Kazakhstan plane crash have come to light. Azerbaijan Airlines has stated that external physical and technical interference led to the crash. Remember, the Embraer 190 aircraft had taken off from Baku for Grozny in Russia's Chechnya and met with a tragic fate. When facing troubles shortly after takeoff, the aircraft was denied landing due to fog in Grozny and diverted far off the Caspian Sea, where it crashed in the Aktau city. It was forced to make an emergency landing. This claimed the lives of 38 people. 29 were left injured. Reports are emerging now that a Russian surface-to-air missile may have caused the deadly crash. This hypothesis, though, has been rejected by Kremlin. In turn, it has pinned the blame on Ukraine. So what's the mystery behind the plane crash is the big question. Joining us live now, Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat. Pathikrit Pain, geopolitical analyst, is live with us. Major General Dhruv Katoj, Director, India Foundation, is joining us live. Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastav is also live with us. Let me make a start with you first, Pathikrit Pain. What do you make of this very shocking revelation made by Azerbaijan Airlines that there could have been external interference?
Good evening, everyone. Well, if you look at that region, a conflict is going on. So unless any hard evidence comes about Russian involvement, I will not buy that logic. The simple reason is when it comes to the Western media, when it comes to several number of false flag operations that has happened, it has become literally a kind of a template to blame Russia. I will not get into that till the time some hard evidence comes in. Especially, I will not fall into that trap of specifically the US and European media, which has at the same time remained silent when it comes to atrocities on minorities in Bangladesh, when it comes to they sanitizing the entire ISIS in the form of a rebel and has handed over Syria into their hands. And similarly, so many other things they have done. So if you look at what has happened, what they've tried to do desperately to Russia in the last few days, including a 9/11 kind of an attack to provoke Russia, in also in terms of assassinating some top leaders of the Russian army, some of whom were actually investigating some critical issues related to biological weapons and their presence in Ukraine, and many other such and certain factors. To suddenly blame Russia with some bits and pieces of news coming up, I will not get into that. For countries like Azerbaijan, which is already in a conflict zone, a conflict situation with Armenia, and including that entire Russia-Ukraine conflict, which is already happening over there. Any kind of false flag operations can also happen. I am not here to give any clean chit to Russia, but till the time hard evidence comes, it will be a little too premature to draw a conclusion that it is a Russian missile which deliberately brought down an Azerbaijani plane. Back to you.
All right, let me take that to Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee. Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, allegations and revelations flying thick and fast. Russia blaming Ukraine. Meanwhile, others saying a Russian missile was involved in this crash. Now the airline also issuing a statement. Ambassador Mukherjee.
In the first instance, I would like to extend my condolences to those who have lost their lives in this tragic accident, and to say that until the result of the investigation is complete, and it should be an independent investigation, we cannot apportion the blame to anyone, but there appears to be unmistakable evidence, and we have two very senior experts from the armed forces with us here, that it has been brought down by a missile. Apparently, the nose of the plane and the part of the body of the plane have got definitive evidence that it's been brought down by a missile. There's shrapnel evidence, etc. Now, in such a situation, in the first instance, one would question the wisdom of the Azerbaijani airline to keep flying in a conflict zone where there is definitive danger of drones which are being sent by Ukraine are being brought down by Russian air defense system. In fact, it should be a no-fly area, and for that I would apportion the blame to the Azerbaijanis, but also to the Russians. When there is danger to civilian aircraft, it is extremely foolish to send civilian aircraft into such an area. And if when the Russians are aware that even though the Grozny is 800 kilometers away from the war zone, the drones are still making their way there and they are being shot down, even if it is embarrassing for the Russians to acknowledge that 800 kilometers into Russian territory, Ukrainian drones are managing to make their way, they should still think of civilian safety and declare it as a no-fly zone. Secondly, it would not appear to be credible, but this is something the military experts here should clarify as to would it be possible? Does Ukrainian missiles have enough? um does Ukraine right now possess missiles that can do devastating damage 800 kilometers into Ukrainian territory? It would appear to me to be doubtful. It would appear to me that the story that it has been shot down by an air defense system, and since it was inside Russian territory, by a Russian air defense system, would appear to be more plausible. But again, I would await the result of an independent investigation precisely because of what Pathikrit said, which is that there is an anti Russian false narrative which we hear day in and day out from the West. We all know where Azerbaijan's sympathies are. Azerbaijan is also a fully Islamic country. So we should await the result of an investigation. But on first hand, it would appear that it's been brought down by an air defense system. And I would blame the Azerbaijanis and the Russians equally for not declaring it immediately a no-fly zone. And I am very happy that as far as India is concerned, we have a strong policy of never endangering civilian lives by sending our civilian aircraft into such dangerous areas. Over to you.
All right, let me in fact quickly take that to Major General Dhruv Katoch. Major General Dhruv Katoch, this was a very tragic air crash, but now, other reasons, of course, emerging, other possibilities emerging. First, bad weather was being suspected. Now, other reasons emerging that could possibly have been the trigger for this air crash. Major General Katoch.
Thank you, Uday. Uday, let me give you a different perspective. The flight time from Baku to Grozny, the distance is about 450, 480 odd kilometers. It's an hour plus. Now, here is an aircraft which takes off from Baku, it goes north to Grozny, and the weather is bad. I haven't understood what makes that aircraft veer east, cross the Caspian Sea, and crash about 480 kilometers at Aktau. It doesn't make sense at all. Why couldn't he go in the opposite direction and land in Georgia, just 100 odd kilometers away? But more logically, if the weather was bad, he should have simply come back. None of this happened. Why does he have to cross the Caspian and crash there, a same distance as if he could have come back very well back to where he started? That is one. Number two, if he had been hit by a missile, this missile hit would have taken place at Grozny. Then if he had been hit by a missile in Grozny, going east and then again landing at Aktau, where that place is across the Caspian, doesn't make any sense. Number three, if it was a missile hit, I'm afraid that aircraft would have crashed there only. You can't get away with a missile. So let us say it's an air defense gun. If it's an air defense gun, then under any circumstances, he should have landed at Grozny, or he should have landed at Georgia or the nearest airfield, and not risk going for another 1 hour and go to Aktau. Everything about this appears wrong. The bullets which are said to be found on the aircraft, that report has come from the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal? I mean, the most incredible piece of false flagging is always done by the Wall Street Journal. I won't take that newspaper's account. I won't give any credibility to that newspaper's accounts. Ultimately, they have found the black box. Now, once they investigate what is there in that black box, if that aircraft was hit by bullets from an air defense gun, it would be very clearly recorded by the pilot. The pilot didn't die. He continued for at least 1 hour till the plane crashed. I'm not sure if he was amongst the casualties. So at this moment, I think everything which we have heard and read about this very tragic accident, to me, doesn't make any sense at all. I think I would like to await the results of the black box before, which I think will only be the only credible piece of evidence, and that will also give us why the pilot chose to go east, another 450 kilometers to Aktau, and finally crash landed there. If anybody has seen that video, there was no fire, there was nothing. This aircraft just veered down after crossing the Caspian and then crashed. So let's see what the black box is. Uday.
Yes, let me quickly now draw you in here, Air Vice Marshal Srivastav, on what you make now of these, allegations that are flying thick and fast. Russia blaming Ukraine, Ukraine blaming Russia, others saying possibly it was a missile of Russia that caused this. The airlines also now saying that there was external interference. There was in fact a possibly physical and technical interference that could have led to the crash.
So, Uday, I have heard our co-panelists and they have given very valued suggestions. But with my experience of 51 years in this field, air defense, and I was a missile firer myself, I find certain things very interesting. I had a very hard look at the debris, which you could see through the pictures, and I tend to agree with General Katoj that I don't see any evidence of that kind of missile bursting, which people say the proximity fuse will burst the missile, because we at least have in the cone of about 160 degrees, we have at least 2,000 bullets coming out of that. That kind of piercing is not there. And for an aircraft like this, which is a very slow moving aircraft from the perspective of a missile and air defense network, this aircraft would be hit right in the center, not in the nose. Another thing which intrigues me is that the aircraft was getting outside the territory. Its path was away from the Russian territory at the time of allegedly whatever hit has taken place. If you put that in perspective, why would anybody hit that kind of aircraft? And if they hit, the hit should be at the tail end. It's not there. So I am really not able to place it on the platter that yes, it could be a possible missile hit. I don't find any of the operational reasons, nor the, I would say, geopolitical motivation for the Russian forces to engage this. And to have this kind of, for a slow moving aircraft, which is known, that is not a combat aircraft, its trajectory tells absolutely rightly, this is not at all a combat aircraft. So if it's not a combat aircraft, why would they, without taking any permission, when there's no threat, they would engage an aircraft like this without the whole system coming in play? Because we have a system of firing. Pushing the button is not just in the hands of the person who sees the aircraft and who fires the missile. So this has not been followed, not pushed. So I have my own intrigue why it is being false flagged, and I tend to agree with General Katoj that yes, Wall Street Journal is one of the journals we always see. A lot of things keep coming and we don't find it. The greatest example is Iraq. We almost flattened it and found nothing like nuclear, any kind of nuclear weapons over there. So let's wait and see. And what I also now, when I went through the public space, I found they say the control surfaces failed. It was not hit on the control surface. The control surfaces failed. That can happen because of many features of this Embraer which was there. It can happen because probably, normally it is all by wire. So maybe the electrical circuit or something failed. Second thing, they say that hydraulic failure took place. And after that missile hit means you are a sudden drop like a stone. You don't keep still traveling and then go and crash somewhere. So it does not indicate to missile hit. Yes, how this unfortunate thing took place. So one thing comes to my mind. If you study the migratory bird pattern, even at that height, I believe this aircraft, it would have started its descent even if it is straight to east. The aircraft would be around 10,000 to 15,000 kind of feet in terms of feet. And a lot of migratory birds at this point of time, the late season birds do cross. Primarily all these swan kind and geese kind, they come through that towards the warmer or Indian subcontinent. So they can be a very probability, if it's all linked to probability, there is a probability of bird hit of this kind. And a bird hit, the noise would be heard in the cabin or otherwise in that manner. Or it went into the, probably into the engines. But the nose is damaged completely because when it went nose dive, it will happen. That happens in all the aircraft. And so many people survived. In a missile hit, the things we like to quote once in a while, those were all on board were killed. So let's put this to some kind of wait list. Okay, we'll wait for the results of total investigations to come through. Azerbaijan, initially, they agreed it is not a missile hit. But later on, as a post-thinking, because they are also an ally with Turkey, and people also connect it with the, we have that conflict with Armenia. They had that conflict. They tried to connect with that, and they're allied towards Turkey. A lot of things are there. Unless this geopolitical situation says that at the moment, assigning a missile hit for the cause of this accident is really not a certainty, at least in our minds. And I don't find any reason, military or otherwise, that this aircraft, a slow moving Embraer aircraft with people on board, which is moving away from the Russian territory, should be hit by them in this mode, and that too on the nose.
Yes.
Not a feasibility.
Uday, can I just add one point?
Yes, Pathikrit Pine coming back in. Please go ahead.
So if you look at the trajectory and the debris of the Malaysian plane MH17 in 2014, which was hit by a Buk air surface-to-air missile, it was completely reduced to complete, it was rubble. It never had a chance to cruise down and actually fall as it happened in this case. So the entire possibility, as has been rightly mentioned by the veterans, of a missile attack simply cannot happen, because if you look at a missile like SA-11, which is called Buk in Russia, they will completely dismantle the aircraft. The fuselage will literally break apart, which didn't happen in this case. Small arms can also be a possibility. One reason in that region, I don't know whether it can reach to that range, but the Ukrainians have been using these drone-mounted small arms to actually do quite a bit of damage in several areas. So false flag operations can also be a possibility, and also the alacrity with which Wall Street Journal comes out with a report to blame the Russians. That is a very big issue. Yeah, back to you.
Okay, let me in fact quickly take that across to Ambassador Mukherjee as well. Ambassador Mukherjee, will we ever then come to know the real reason for why this incident took place?
We will come to know the real reason, as has been stated by my co-panelists, once the report of the black box is made public. I'd just like to add, Ryder, here, that Azerbaijan is allied to Turkey, but Turkey has a very uneasy relationship with the West, and Turkey has had many problems with the US. So while I completely agree that the Wall Street Journal often has narratives which are ridiculously anti-Russian and pro-Ukrainian, and for that matter, narratives which are also very anti-Indian, I would like to reserve my judgment until one goes into the complete contours of what happened. But there can be no doubt that the fact that the plane crashed nose first would also appear that the pilot could not have survived. Those in the front part of the plane could not have survived. Those in the back part of the plane survived. And in fact, it's a very macabre airline joke that you may travel economy class, but if you're sitting in the tail end of a plane in a crash, those who are the poorest survive. Those who are the richest in business and first class go with the crew. So I would be surprised looking at the pictures as to how any human being flying that plane could have survived. In which case, we will not know the pilot's point of view. But the passenger who said that there were two loud bangs, very loud, and the plane started shaking, well, perhaps, as my colleague Air Vice Marshal said, perhaps it could be that the bird has been sucked into the engine of the aircraft, because he said that there were two loud bangs, and then the plane started wavering and he started saying his prayers. A very natural reaction, naturally, in such a horrendous situation. So I would like to examine further the theory of the bird hit, because from the way it's been explained, it could be a very real possibility. I wonder if that, I would ask Air Vice Marshal to elaborate whether that black box would indicate that or not. It could perhaps if the pilot records it, but otherwise, is there a possibility for the black box to indicate that it's been hit by a bird, is a question that I would put to my co-panelist, expert Air Vice Marshal Srivastava.
So, Uday, can I say?
Yes. Before I go back to Major Katoch, I think Air Vice Marshal Srivastava wants to come back in. Yes.
No, okay, you like to go to General Katoch?
No, please go ahead. Please go ahead with your intervention.
Okay. So, essentially, ma'am, it is like this. When a hit takes place, the recorder is all the time recording. It is not something which is dependent on somebody to say yes or no. The first thing, the recorder is recording. It is doing audio recording. It is doing all parameters recording. It will record engine parameters. It will record all other electrical parameters. your control parameters, how the aircraft is behaving, what is the profile of the aircraft, records all and sundry. So we make interpretations from that. So when we milk the data, thereafter what we do, we try to find out what happened to engine. And if there is sudden surge in the engine temperature, in the blades coming to a rest, then we know that that's an inductive interpretation, which is over the years has been established to be true, that yes, there was a bird sucked in, and there'll be telltale signs of the bird on the turbines and other places of engine. When people go on site, they can find out it's not something which will remain not known to the investigating team. They'll come to know absolutely right. Why I tend to disagree with the concept that there were 2/3 heard. When you are hit by a missile, I told you there'll be at least 2,000 bullets in whose zone you will be. There's such a small aircraft which is giving good signature to the radar, and as far as Panzer is concerned, it'll get a
Yes.
full signature of this aircraft. With that, all the bullets will probably hit it. You imagine 2,000 bullets coming out of it, and out of 2,000, here only 2/3. So there'll be debris of a different kind. It'll be hit, and nobody can. If an aircraft is by a Panzer class of missile, there'll be no doubt in anybody's mind how it has been hit. It'll be
Okay.
all telltale signs would be there.
Do we expect this
as far as
mystery?
this is concerned, this will come very true, and black box will be able to tell it, and the physical evidence of the aircraft.
Do we expect this mystery to be solved then, Major Katoch, with the recovery of the black box and this investigation, or will the mystery remain with these allegations which often fly thick and fast, and then no conclusion is made?
No, very frankly, once you've got scientific evidence, the truth is out in the open, regardless of what newspapers, propaganda pieces like the Wall Street Journal state. It doesn't really matter because, as Air Marshal Srivastava very correctly brought out, now there will be scientific evidence which nobody can disprove. And so at least we will know what caused it to crash. But some things, which still bother my mind, is the decision of the pilot. Why did he go east? He could very well have gone west. Why don't you just come back? It's the same distance. It's just about 1 hour, So a plane is flying from Delhi to, say, Shimla, right? And the weather is bad. He comes back to Delhi. Why does he have to go to Ladakh or something? It doesn't make sense to me. So, you've got, unless the distance is too far or something, you're traveling from Washington to Delhi, and then something happens, you won't go back to Washington. But here it is very close. So you had better options. What made the pilot choose this particular option, which are the same distance, going across the ocean and then going? That is something which I think the pilot can tell if he's alive. Yeah.
Okay. Let me, in fact, go across then to Pathikrit Pain for a closing comment now on the road ahead. Pathikrit, how will this mystery end?
I think Air Marshal wanted to say something.
Yes.
Okay.
Air Marshal wanted to say
Okay,
something.
please go ahead.
Yeah, on the choice of the airfield, what General was mentioning, I just want to mention one thing, that you decide on the airfield whether the weather conditions are good. And as I went through the, status, there was 10 kilometers visibility and the cloud base was 3,300 feet. So that kind of parameter gives a very clear thing for an aircraft which does not want to get further diverted. So I take a shore diversion. That can be a thought in the mind of the pilot. And these are all notified diversion airfields. So you can choose either this or that. That depends on at what place, what kind of time you already have. So keeping that in mind, I will not dispute so much the judgment of going, because it's just about 50 minutes of flight time, for which he had sufficient fuel. So probably that could have been the motivation of going to that place. I'd just like to mention that.
Yes, Pathikrit Pain, the road ahead now. When will the mystery finally end? And at the end of the day, the fact, of course, is, do you believe more interrogation is needed of the survivors of this crash to piece together the puzzle?
Uday, it would be another casualty of a difficult conflict that is going on. If you look at what happened with the Malaysian Airlines crash before, both in 2014 and one later on, you still don't have a conclusive evidence. There are only conjectures and interpretations. So I don't think too much will come out of this also, because it's such a difficult scenario today in the world. There is so much of animosity between two sides. Neither side will agree if the version is not according to in their favor. So if you ask me, data will come out. but like the casualties of war, data will be interpreted as per the convenience of both the Russians and the West. Back to you.
My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion. It's time now to slip into a very short break.